Hey guys, now that the market has shut, I'm coming at you with a new video where we're going to be looking at what actually happened throughout the day. We've seen some interesting figures when it comes to what's going on with AMC, and we're also going to be looking at the wider market very briefly to discuss what this all means overall with AMC and of course where we could be heading for the rest of the week. So key things to report today: AMC finishing up by about 7.61% according to this is tradingview.com, and it was a very eventful day. Again, it was looking at some points like it was going to be much better than that. The ultimate highs took us just below $17 exactly, coming up to the high $16.90 range, as you can see. But we're going to be looking at the price in a moment in grave detail. First, I want to provide you with some other key data as usual. Now, we looked at this before, but I just want to remind you of it. Days like this, we're going to be seeing short sellers losing even more money, and that is one thing which cannot be denied. But what we're here to see really for this one is going to be coming from chartexchange.com. And this is what we're seeing for the off-exchange data. If I can make that a bit larger, I will do so for you guys and drag it into the middle. So there we go, that's what we're looking at for the data for today. So off-exchange today is 60.72%. And you can imagine, obviously, that is more than half. That's 32.6 million in volume, and it's 55, almost 56% over the past 30 days. Now, the COBE is also seeing this one go up to 10.75. Again, that's about 5 million volume. And when we're looking at exchanges that we are familiar with, NYSE, NASDAQ, and others, of course, that we know, these are looking very low in comparison. NYSE, again, quite low. NASDAQ, similar thing. You get the picture, okay? The majority of the volume, and it is the majority, it's more than 50%, is just going straight off exchange. Be aware of that. So imagine what would happen if we saw this actually go, where it's supposed to, into the correct and fair channels. Just really something which I think is quite astonishing at this point, though, still going on. Now, briefly, we're going to be looking at the wider market. Why? Because we always do this for the simple fact it tells us a bit about what's going on in the whole market, and therefore we can kind of gauge how AMC is doing relative. So we're going to refresh the page that we have the most recent data, and as you can see, things have changed. We're looking at a drop on the S&P, but when we come up here, scroll to US, we can see the numbers on our major US indices. The Dow down by 0.69%. You're going to be seeing that drop trend similar to what we saw with the S&P just a moment ago. So yeah, that's moving down by a little bit according to this. Going to go back onto it now and we'll have a look at the others. So yeah, the S&P, like I said, down by about 0.84. NASDAQ is also down, which we'll have a look at too in just a brief second. So you get the picture as to what I'm trying to say. The markets unfortunately are falling across the picture. Again, NASDAQ down by 0.81. So the general US markets are falling once again. Now, this is very interesting because this is in stark contrast to what we are seeing with AMC today. Again, markets down by a little bit, AMC continued to run. And when I have a look on my phone at the same time as I'm filming this and look to the wider market and stocks which I am following, we're not seeing the same runs like what we're seeing. Again, what I'm seeing is an AMC gain of 7+%, but when we look to other stocks that we may be interested in, Tesla's only finishing up by 0.2% in the green. It nearly went red. Nvidia is closing up by 2% up, and others are closing at some point in that range. It's not been this mesmerizingly green day across the market. It really has been an AMC exception, but crypto has kind of followed this trend as well. Again, crypto not necessarily correlated to the stock market, but that is something interesting. So as you're going to be seeing, coming into the date that we're on today, which is clearly going to be the 18th, we had that massive rip up, very impressive indeed, where we hit our high of 1643. It did take us some time to get through that as we fell back down to the 1589 range, but yeah, then we quickly blasted through it, hitting new highs consecutively, coming up to 1659, then coming back down to the 1640 range, going up to a new high of 1686, then coming back down to the 1650 range, and then flaying up to the 1695 range before falling all the way back down to 1627 rather. And again, towards the very last part of the day, it did look like we were waiting to see more growth. Again, we found that bottom at 1629, we managed to hold that up. Coming up from there, we hit 1640, and that really did hold up for the end of the day. And then you're going to be seeing that big candle towards the very end, where we really started to take off again, closing up at 16.58. So really not too bad at all for the time that we were trading. Let's have a look at some other figures which are key, and we'll do that now. So quickly first we will have a look at the post-market trend for AMC. Now this isn't really too important in my opinion because most retail don't have access to it, but we're looking quite flat so far. Again, we do still have more than 2 hours to go, so definitely way too early to read anything into that, but for those interested, that is what we're seeing at the moment. Now coming over here to Ortex data, and that's also coming from JD Ruckers, who is the Ortex guy. As you will know, we have an update of info which we may want to analyze. So we'll get both pages up and then we'll have a look at key details. So we'll start off on this one with the generalized most important data. Things like the cost to borrow maximum at 11%, the minimum at 9.97, and the average is there at 10.71. Again, we've seen higher, we've seen lower, and we've spoken about how this can potentially be manipulated with stuff like FTDs and other methods which they have utilized in the past. Anyway, borrowed change is 978k because the borrowed shares have been 1.9 million and the returned have been 983k, which means that of course they have borrowed more shares than they have returned, which is always a nail in the coffin a little bit further. Now the second page shows us a little bit more info. Again, short score is at 75.73. The estimated value of that $1.42 billion as of current, that's a change of 4.16 from 7 days ago. Estimated SI of free float is going to be a decrease of 0.66 from 7 days ago. And we can see things like the free float on loan, decrease of 9%. Although we've spoken about how that once more can be changed, manipulated in ways to kind of trick and deceive. Anyway, shares on loan, we're looking at figures regarding the figures around, I should say, 130 million as of current, down from 142 in the last 7 days. And again, that's a decrease now of 9.21. So the days to cover on loan gone down by 9.172, and we're seeing things like the cost to borrow decreasing by 17%. Again, that's from the point of 13.36 as we were 7 days ago. Although one thing which has not changed for a very long time, over 100 days if I am not mistaken, is the utilization. And this alone is a shocking fact which, well, I'm still mesmerized by to this day. How on earth is this at 100%? And again, if that's at 100%, how are we seeing all of the other figures change? Because that just doesn't make sense in my opinion. Anyway, but again, being as we've discussed all that in detail before, we shall not do it again. But this is your Monday update of AMC and all the data which I think you guys should know. Again, hopefully this sort of stuff will arm you going forwards into Tuesday and mean that you will have a more pleasant and more understanding and more, rounded understanding as to what's going on. So I hope it was useful. If it was, of course, do smash a like and subscribe. We're trying to grow the channel as always, so if you can share, please do. And for now, I'm going to say goodbye.